What's up, people? This is Nj Girl 30 here, and I am here with one half of the British Fist, NJ.
What's up?
What's up, NJ? It is great for you to be here. We are doing another best of series. I guess it's pretty much a best of series. I just did the best and worst matches with Mr. Griffin and Brandon Goins of 2014. Now we are doing the best moments of 2014 in WWE. And I am joining here with NJ. We actually have a top 10 list instead of a top 5. And honestly, I think this is a great list. What do you think, NJ?
Well, it's been a bit of a rough year for the WWE, and the fact that we've managed to pick out the positive points us happy to be watching the WWE is worth mentioning, and the list we've got many could relate to.
I agree. I agree. And these are some really good moments. And a lot of them are heartfelt moments. But let's get started with number 10 on this list is the Andre the Giant Battle Royal at WrestleMania 30. Honestly, I really felt that this was a great time to start something different, a different tradition for the mid carders to actually have their chance to shine, as well as having a trophy to commemorate what Andre the Giant has done for the business. So I thought it was a great way to have people out there. It was a great way to actually have the mid card out there and show what they can do. And not to mention that Cesaro kind of paid homage to what Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan did by actually putting the Big Show over the top rope. I thought it was great. What are your thoughts on it?
Going into, I thought it was a very special moment and match for the WWE and Andre to involve so many wrestlers that you either want to see at WrestleMania or wrestlers a WrestleMania match, and for Cesaro to come out looking brilliant, I felt that this is definitely a option for our list, and a good. It was meant to be a good start going for Cesaro for the rest of 2014.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It really did kind of kickstart Cesaro's career. I mean, even though Cesaro's been a great athlete and we knew exactly what he was made of in some of these matches, it really did just kind of put a stamp of approval for Cesaro's career, in my opinion, after what he did at that battle royal. But let's go on to number 9. Number 9 is something that a lot of people didn't talk about, not lately, but I found it interesting as well as you. And this is the Wyatt Family Choir, where all those kids were pretty much in my version. I feel like it was a WWE version of Children of the Corn. Like I was creeped out seeing those kids up there singing that song, "The Whole World in His Hands." They literally made that song creepy without trying. What are your thoughts on that?
This was a act for Bray Wyatt with his previews and him talking about and relating to being part of the C Nation and his children. It was very nicely done, and the fact that his theme song, they were around in the ring, sheep masks. It was so fitting. Right promo, the feud with Cena, and a showing for that Raw. Again, I just thought it was absolutely brilliant for 2014.
Yeah, I mean, by far the WWE really knew how to make kids creepy. And that was that was like a pinnacle moment for me when I was officially creeped out after seeing those kids sing that song. Especially that little child that was just up there with Bray Wyatt and then all the sheep masks. That was just creepy by far. But that was definitely a very memorable moment for 2014. Um and this is probably gonna be something that might be that others might agree with it, others might not. I'm not gonna say it's controversial. I doubt it would be, but I feel like there's gonna be it's gonna be split, or maybe it'll just be everyone disagreeing. Either or, we have for number 8 the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, the time when it was finally joined after all those moments where people were just wearing two belts around them. They finally put it together and made it one big belt with a lot of worth. So I've been waiting for that moment to happen since ever since they decided to bring back the undisputed title, even though they didn't make it undisputed. I've been waiting for that belt to finally come together, and honestly, they finally brought it together after Brock Lesnar won. So I guess it was fitting after after everything that happened after Lesnar beat Cena. It was fitting to have that belt finally come together, and I was happy that they did it. What are your thoughts?
It was quite a delay because moments kept passing by where they could have in a double replacement championship. They made us wait so long, so at a point it was coming to, oh, I just don't care anymore. It looks like they're happy with having two belts, but when they finally gave us the one, yes, it looks similar to the WWE Championship. That's the point, because it was representing the WWE as a company with one belt, and I think giving it to Brock Lesnar add more of a big deal effect to Brock Lesnar. And I think for that to happen in 2014, before Brock is to leave, was very fitting and made fans happy to see just the one belt now.
Yeah. Plus, it kind of gave a whole different new, well, a whole new respect for the belt itself. Like it just seemed like they were treating it as a prop, having it hoisted over their shoulder, then seeing it having it around them like a hanger, and it was just you just felt like they were disrespecting the belt. So technically, yeah, I agree with you. It was great that they actually did just make it one belt, and it kind of gave you a sense of respect for that belt now that it was actually one. Um, but moving on to number 7 of this list, which made a lot of fans of this character really happy. And we're talking about another chance for Sandow. We had the goofiness that came out that Sandow brought up and cooked up with every single new person that came on, whether it was a guest host or whatever. But honestly, Sandow really did hit his moments when he paired up with the Miz. And just before we felt that he was going to be released, they kind of gave him a second chance, and he has a whole new win with the Miz, and I love it. I really do. Even though his character is more like a mime than anything else, either or, it's fun, it's entertaining. He's way over with the crowd, and he actually does have a second wind.
I think with certain characters in the WWE, they deserve to be saved instead of released or turned into jobbers. Yes, Damien Sandow did go through that multi-character thing for the WWE, but it all led up to settling down as Damien Mizdow, Miz's stunt double, and because of how well it's working, because of how much TV time Damien Sandow's getting, because of how much fan reaction he's getting, I think this chance, this moment, is definitely worth putting onto the list because it's rebuilding him. Yes, we don't know where it's going to go after The Miz, but for 2014, it was definitely a high point for his career coming back and for the fans.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I will agree I will agree with that because with Sandow, he became once he was like the intellectual savior of the masses to being someone that you really couldn't reinvent, and he somehow reinvented himself and made himself like completely fresh and new and fun, which is something that these days is what WWE is missing, the fun. And he was a great character to watch, and I really do like the fact that he was built up by that. Um, let's go on to number 6. Now, the Divas they've had their share of hard knocks, especially with WrestleMania 30 being one of the worst. But we're not going to talk about the worst yet. We're going to talk about the best. And the best moments since Lita and Trish, I might add, that had the best build was Stephanie versus Brie. I was highly impressed with this match. I thought it was going to be a one-sided match where Stephanie was going to lay down and just get the crap beat out of her, and that was it, like how Vince does, because Vince really does suck in the ring. But Stephanie was well trained. after seeing that match with her and Brie, Stephanie was well trained, well versed in moves. You could tell that Triple H really did have a hand in her training. And the build was amazing. You have not seen anything this big in Divadom since Trish and Lita. And they built it up really well. They had a signing and everything. And honestly, Brie and Stephanie, they made themselves look good in the ring. I was highly impressed. And for someone who's a big fan of the Divas, it made me so happy inside to see that work out well. What are your thoughts on it? Because I know you're not a huge fan of the Divas. What are your thoughts?
I agree with you on the most part because it's been a long time since fans have actually seen so much concentration and booking on the Divas division, and for the Bella Twins slash Stephanie to get the continuous booking leading up to the WrestleMania match and other stuff related to Steph and Brie, it really paid off for those two characters. And the way they treat Brie, the way that he overpowered her, it does feel good when Boss gets involved in storylines, especially when it's given to not just the male wrestlers, but to the divas or women wrestlers.
Yeah, I agree with that. I really do. Because Stephanie, of course, is the female version of Vince, and duh, because that's his daughter. But she actually did perform, in my opinion, a lot better than Vince. Maybe I'm not she hasn't completely overshadowed him, but she kind of trumped him in a way. And I guess maybe it's because of her being a McMahon, but her being involved in this feud with Brie really did help Brie's career a lot. Not to mention it kind of cemented um Stephanie as like one of the most awesome female heels ever. Like seriously, it really did them both good, and it made me happy to see that happen. Moving on to number 5. Now, this guy here, he I'm not gonna say that he was in the shadows. He's always been noticed, especially with his crew. But he kind of, as soon as he made that heel turn, his career just changed. And I will say the booking of Seth Rollins was definitely done very well. Something that was completely unexpected, kinda. Because honestly, in my opinion, you would have probably expected Dean Ambrose to probably be the one to betray folk. But since Dean Ambrose is unhinged anyway, but seeing Seth Rollins do it in a very calculating way really did kind of bring up his career. Not to mention that he is somewhat the engineer, because I'll consider Seth Rollins to be more like organized chaos. People compare him to Jeff Hardy, but either or, the way he executes in the ring is very clean and very organized with a precise landing that you don't see a lot of wrestlers do. He was already noticed in the Shield before he broke off, but when he did break off was when his career went up. What are your thoughts?
Again, you echoed what I was going to say, because in the Shield, I felt that he was noticed for the stunts he took, the helping hand when needed, while the concentration was on Ambrose. It almost made you think that Ambrose, the talk of the Shield, was going to be the one to break out, join the Authority, and I think Seth Rollins would have still been okay. But the WWE surprised us by making Seth leave the Shield to join the Authority, and the Authority, you can badmouth the Authority as much as you want, but having them there for his build at least gave him so much heel momentum and movement as a heel and backup as a heel that he's now became a guy who's had the experience, the training, the um, backing of the Authority, that he has became 2014 a great heel and even more of a better competitor thanks to his heel turn.
True. True, I agree with that. But also, I guess in some sense, people would probably think that Roman Reigns would have been the guy, since Roman Reigns was getting the most momentum. But Roman Reigns was kind of proven to be a lot more loyal than the other two. So, it was kind of, in a way, you kind of was thinking that it would either be Roman Reigns or Dean Ambrose, but either or, Seth Rollins got the win here. He got the win all the way to the bank. And not to mention, he is the Money in the Bank holder. So from there, the sky's still the limit because he can cash in whenever. But moving on to number 4. And speaking of the Shield, the Shield and Evolution booking, the feud that they had in 2014 was amazing. Don't get me wrong. I know for those that have heard my last audio about the worst moments, you know that I actually did put the Evolution match between them and the Shield at Extreme Rules. I think it was Extreme Rules, or maybe it was a pay per view after, as in being the worst match because how one sided it was. But besides that, I'm talking about the build. The build leading on up to the first match was amazing. That was probably one of the best builds in feuds in faction feuds that I've seen in a while. And having like the veterans of Evolution, we all know who Evolution was. And yeah, I've had my say about the 3 of them being in there, but that's besides the point. It's like having the veterans there, and then having the Shield being the guys over there fighting against these veterans, these well-known guys, and just going toe to toe was amazing. It was a great build, great feud. I enjoyed it. What are your thoughts?
As much as people might compare the Wyatt family to the Shield to be better, the Evolution, another 3-man faction, was great. It was like another feud for the Shield. By this time, was becoming, where did the Shield go next? Who do they face? So to bring back Evolution, to save Batista, to save the Shield from breaking up yet, yes, feuds like this could have been pushed to certain pay-per-views, but the payoff, the push, a build it gave to the Shield members, which eventually grew to a tease of Triple H and Reigns, Seth being teased, Ambrose being teased. So much came from this, and the matches they brought out. Yes, Shane at the Evolution, who always get the win, who always get the last laugh, didn't really fulfill that by losing to Shield. I thought this really added something 14 and to the future of the Shield.
Yeah, because Evolution, anybody that goes against a group that's well known as Evolution, even though it's without Nate, but I'm not getting into that. But still, that was a really great way to pass the torch. It was. It really did benefit the Shield greatly as a faction and kind of cemented them as one of the best factions in 2014. Probably one of the best factions of the beginning of the last few years. And honestly, it really did help them out, especially how they came from NXT. I mean, it worked out well for them. Um, Moving on to number 3. Now, we might either this might be half and half. We might get flack, or people might agree that the Ultimate Warrior, not only at the Hall of Fame, but also at the Raw after, was probably one of the best moments that we can cement, because that was the first time that we've seen Warrior at the Hall of Fame in the last 20 some odd years, probably a lot longer than that. And then the final time we saw him alive was at that Raw. That was a real special moment for fans of Warrior. For those that remember him just booking it down to the ring and shaking those ropes and beating Hulk Hogan. And for those who are huge fans of Warrior during the time of the Golden Era, honestly, it was a really great moment for me. It was a somber moment to know that was the last time we saw him after that Raw, but it was still a great moment nonetheless to be able to see him in the Hall of Fame. Not to mention that he mended fences with Vince McMahon, and that's even better. You have all that tension built up over the years, and that's finally just completely squashed and just peace is reigning. and that's what made me really happy, and that's how I feel that was a great moment. What are your thoughts?
I agree that the relationship between the WWE and Warrior getting repaired, the deals being made for the game, WWE game, the DVD, Hall of Fame, Raw appearance, really brought me to the WWE, the Hall of Fame, Mania Raw. The death obviously was a tragic to happen, but without us knowing that, the promo work from Warrior at the Hall of Fame and on Raw was amazing. The words were touching to the fans and to the wrestlers backstage. The the newer talent, the growing talent. He mentioned the bigger names. Everything just felt so bright and so touching and amazing for the return of Warrior.
Yeah.
Tragic and upsetting, and at that time, of, but the speciality of everything combined for his return made 2014 have tremendous speciality about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. It's still kind of sad to know he's gone, but honestly, that's a moment that's always going to be cemented in wrestling history. So it's not, even though it's sad, it's still a great moment to remember. Now we're actually getting close to number one. And number two, a lot of people may be thinking that that should be number one, but we're going to be fair here when it comes to moments. Our number two is Cena's beatdown at SummerSlam. Everybody knows about that moment. And for those who are certified Cena haters, that was probably the most triumphant moment of your life that day. And honestly, I feel like that was a humbling moment for Cena. Not so, and people may disagree of the fact that it might be that Cena kind of came out just unscathed. But on the real, if you literally think about it, it really made the fans question him. Like, he was always booked as a superhero. He was always booked as Superman. Who would have ever thought that Brock Lesnar would be his kryptonite? To where that not only did it poison him, it poisoned the fans as well as the legends around him, and they questioned every single motive he had. That's something that you would never expect happening in Cena's career. But honestly, I feel like that was a really huge moment because it was very humbling for him, and that had to make him think twice of what he can and cannot do. But that's just me. What are your thoughts?
I was so happy to have this on our list. A big part of me wanted this to be number one because to watch that match over and over and over and over and over
And
and
over
over
again.
again, because so many overs because from the Extreme Rules match where Cena could not stay down, that son of a gun, to that match where Brock Lesnar down, he like put his massive foot on top of Cena's body and kept him down. It made you look at Cena thinking, why can't this be Cena all the time? Why can't he allow other wrestlers to keep him down? It made you look at Cena and think, thank you, Cena, for doing the right thing. Yes, the feud between these two is being stretched too long now because Cena doesn't give up. But for 2014, to see Cena in that different light for that one match, and to have Brock Lesnar overpowering our Superman, it was just such a brilliant moment, entertaining moment, and left many fans happy.
Exactly. And it's not even about, in my opinion, Cena doing the right thing, because let's be real, Cena cannot beat Brock. He can try and try as he might. The only time he could ever beat Brock Lesnar is if it's booked that way. But it really did just question everything about Cena's motives. Well, not really Cena's motives, but it just questioned how strong Cena really is. And it just shows that mentally he has that whole, never give up, never surrender, hustle, loyalty, respect attitude. But after that moment, he had to have questioned himself, and it seemed that way as time went on, to making him wonder, should I really give this up? Like, should I really just give up on Brock and move on? And I think that's a huge change in his career, because we're just used to seeing Super Cena always win. But now, after that, even he has to question a lot of stuff. And I thought that that's definitely should be number two. But before we get to number one, we have two honorable mentions that people may think it should have been on the list, but we just had to be fair about moments wise. And this is just in the company. This is pretty much something that kind of wasn't necessarily company oriented. It involved them, but it's more like worldwide. But one of the honorable mentions here is Vince and Punk's the podcast. Vince McMahon had a podcast with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and everybody knows about CM Punk's podcast with Colt Cabana. Now, see, that actually Vince McMahon actually did have a response to what CM Punk did on Colt Cabana's broadcast about maybe a few weeks later. He actually did have a no holds barred podcast with Stone Cold Steve Austin, because Stone Cold Steve Austin actually asked him this. And he was very, very professional about it. We all thought that he was just going to go off the rails like he did when he was younger, but he was very professional about it. And honestly, half the things he kind of, you would probably say he maybe half did some of his apologies, but at least he acknowledged them. And I was really shocked to even know that he was even going to confirm any of these things. But it seemed to me that it was somewhat of a confirmation, and I was really shocked to hear that. And I thought that was an interesting moment. But as we said before, it was something that's more worldwide and not really in the company base. But what are your thoughts on the Vince Punk podcast?
I think because of CM Punk's departure really hitting a lot of fans to a point where fans were really frustrated, then starting to not care and leaving some fans still wanting him. I think CM Punk saying what he did was really strong against the WWE, against Vince McMahon. And yes, people may not believe his words, but at the same time, I see Punk as a guy who says it how it is, says his opinions, doesn't care about the backlash. So for him to say what he did, Vince McMahon to respond, and whatever's going on between the two now, I just thought it was absolutely great on behalf of more Punk's side than Vince's. Vince can try and defend his company as much as he wants, but Punk definitely gave fans what they deserved.
Yeah. But as for whether or not some of these things that Punk said was confirmed, I will say that there were many wrestlers that got released, especially from Alberto Del Rio's podcast, and also Ricardo Rodriguez podcast that he had. And some things that Stone Cold said kind of confirmed a few things that CM Punk said on his podcast with Colt Cabana. So having three people pretty much say the same thing, and then you have CM Punk say it, kind of confirms exactly what CM Punk's saying. It kind of backs it up. As for the staph infection that he had, I would not be surprised if he actually did, because there are a lot of wrestlers that come out there with injuries that could pretty much kill them, and they're still out there performing. I would not be surprised if that is true. And thank God he didn't die, because you can die from something like that. But it was a really interesting dynamic to actually see the response of Vince and the way he handled it. And I'm kind of happy that it was Vince, because I don't think that Triple H would handle it better, because it seems like the CM Punk had more beef with Triple H than anything else. I don't think that, or not really so much Triple H. He's more of a character. I'm gonna say Paul Levesque, because that's what his name is. Paul Levesque probably wouldn't handle it better than Vince McMahon would. So I'm kind of happy it was Vince that did it and not Paul, because I don't think it would work. But honestly, it was a great way to handle it. I'm really impressed with how Vince handled it, and I'm honestly kind of impressed that somewhat impressed that CM Punk was able to handle it the way that he did on the podcast. He could have went out on a bash fest, but honestly, he just straight up told the truth. And I'm really, impressed with the both of them. But we have another honorable mention, and that is Bruno Sammartino in the Hall of Fame. This is a feat that nobody could ever imagine happening because he just vowed that he would never be in the Hall of Fame, but somehow Paul Levesque made it possible. And I think that was great of how you had someone as legendary as Bruno Sammartino actually being in the Hall of Fame. And I think that was a great moment for those who were fans of his during that era. What are your thoughts?
Think with the fact that the Hall of Fame is meant to be a speciality thing to the WWE, there are some wrestlers that go in there just because they go in there. There's no proper, strong meaning to it. But when there are people that deserve it, people who've been legends, icons, names, people who have done big things for the company, he's definitely the top of the list. So to finally induct him, I think is absolutely brilliant, amazing, and it was something that fans said needs to be done. So for Triple H, Paul Levesque to work to make that possible, it made Hall of Fame 2014 probably one of the best.
Yeah, it made it really memorable for those who were fans of Bruno Sammartino, and the fact that he actually did show up was even better for those that loved him. But let's move on to our number one moment of 2014, and I think that there are people that might agree with this, knowing that we chose this as number one, and this is Daniel Bryan's big win at WrestleMania 30. This guy has been facing odds after odds after odds after odds after freaking odds to where we never thought there would be no end. I wouldn't be surprised if there were Daniel Bryan fans that were in stretchers because of all the strokes they've had waiting for this guy to win. And finally, after long last, after all the abuse that this man took, after all the backing that he had from the Yes Movement, he finally reached and grabbed that brass ring and finally got the WWE World Heavyweight title after beating not only Triple H but also Batista and and Randy Orton. But anybody could say all day the reason why he won was all because of the streak. Yeah, that might have been the case, but either or, it was still satisfying. It was a satisfying win, a wonderful win, and not to mention that people who don't even watch wrestling knew who Daniel Bryan was by the end of the night. And not to mention, he married his beautiful wife Bree, who now his wife Bree, about a few days later. So either or, it's a huge win for Daniel Bryan. But that was one of the biggest moments that I see of 2014. What are your thoughts, NJ?
I'm going to say this now. Going from Daniel Bryan when he first came into the WWE for quite some time after, I just didn't care about Bryan. Oh, I'm sorry, Bryan fans, but I just didn't like him that much. He may be great ROH, brought it to the WWE, but I just couldn't care. His world title run, yeah, that first one didn't really go well, exciting. Yes, he put on great matches, but I think it really hit when he got up towards the Yes movement. I'm not saying the Yes made me like him, but around about that time, he broke out. It became storyline madness for him, fan madness. People were all over him. He was becoming one of the top names in the company, and Vince McMahon, Triple H, the writers, yada yada yada, noticed this and put so much concentration on this guy that it led to WrestleMania, where he got to face Triple H, who was doing great work with Daniel Bryan, really making Daniel Bryan work. Then there was the injuries, there was the authority, there was the championship run. they really pushed Daniel Bryan to the limit, which made me start to like this guy more and for fans to realise that Daniel Bryan should be one of the wrestlers to continue getting the concentration so there could be someone up there with John Cena.
Yeah. And if you honestly think about it, he kind of like surpassed John Cena. Like he ended up becoming the top face of the WWE. Whether it was on purpose or not, he actually did surpass John Cena. And the Yes Movement put him way over. Not to mention, it was somebody that we could root for. Somebody that we saw that was struggling to get to where he is and finally got to where he was, no matter how much was against him. That is something that a lot of people want to see out of Cena. And we saw it a lot more out of Daniel Bryan. Hence why he is, that moment there is one of the best moments of 2014. And guys, we're not done there. We actually have the worst moments of 2014 coming up too. Don't get it twisted. We do have the worst. But as for now, I am the Nature Girl 30, and I am also joined with NJ, one half of the British Fist.
And I'm going to say thank you very much for letting me be a part of this video. It's been fun talking about the good times because the amount of negativity that comes out of the WWE by majority of the fans is ridiculous. I appreciate the good times. If you want to rant about the bad, join in with the Nature Girl 30's next video, which I'm very looking forward to express myself more with those 10 points there.
And as for now, guys, we are out. I'm the Nature Girl 30.
And I'm NJ.
Peace out, y'all, for now.